Yay, I see the record.
All right, we are recording. Wow. Okay, so friends of ours, friends of Thriving Blind, Navigating Blindness, I Swear Apparel, if you only knew the lengths we go to
For real.
for all of you. I'm cracking up because I should be crying because every time I think I know technology, and if you were on, God forbid, the Facebook a little while ago, Facebook Live on Thriving Blind, I was trying to get this going and I almost had a nervous breakdown. And it's just so funny to me because people I can't tell you, it has to be every single day in my town, at an event, where people go, oh my God, you are so good with Facebook.
Well, I think you're good at Facebook, and I was super nervous. I'm not nervous anymore, so it worked out for the best.
Well, there you go. I think I'm good at like two things on Facebook, and clearly one of them is no longer getting people on Facebook Live, because I must have to go through and do a slew of updates. I don't know. That'll be my podcast that I'll be listening to as I run for the rest of the week, all the updates on Facebook. But anyway, for all of the fans that don't know who it is I'm talking to, this is my buddy Kim Owens. That I was thinking about how to even introduce. People say that I do a ton of stuff. I'm like, let's do it this way. Where did you begin? Was it the blog?
Well, let's see. Really, when Kai was diagnosed 10 years ago with retinitis pigmentosa, I was scouring the internet for information, and I could not find any blogs that were written by other parents. And so I decided that at some point I would start writing everything down, and it eventually turned into what's now the Navigating Blindness blog.
I gotcha. All right, so that's where you began. Then that evolved. But wait, at the same time, or after that, did Kai's stuff evolve?
It was all really at the same time. I was writing, I think at the time I was writing on Caring Bridge, and Kai had the idea to start sort of something that evolved into what we're calling Kai's Comforts. And so he sort of had that going, and I sort of had the Caring Bridge going, and then eventually everything just sort of came together.
That's so cool. And that was those are three of the reasons that I thought when we were texting the other day and emailing, I'm like, let's just go on video and talk about all this, because it was such an incredible conversation that I'm all for. Like, it's just easier to put it all out there to everybody in one big video, as opposed to chunks of information for me, everybody with time-wise and everything. But it's just really cool info too. And I'm going to try to slow this down and chunk it instead of having everybody in my brain for a minute, because right now my brain goes in circles of our text an hour ago with, oh my gosh, people still don't know, there's no information out there for parents, and I started all of this and now I'm doing this, and oh my God, there's still no information out there for parents. It's this horrible cycle, and I could feel you earlier with the frustration and the exhaustion in it all, because I have been feeling the past month the exact same way. As I'm on all this stuff is getting out there, and I feel like people are actually getting sick of hearing about Thriving Blind, right? That it's out there so much. And then every day I get a message saying, I have nowhere to turn. I don't know about anything. And I'm like, how is that possible?
I feel the same way. And I was so thankful to be texting with you, because some days it gets discouraging, and some days I think, why am I doing all of this? And then other days I'm just so thankful to be connected with as many people as we've been able to connect with through the Navigating Blindness and Kai's Comforts, and now our new venture, I Swear Apparel. So we've been meeting people from across the world, and that's amazing, but it also brings with it, I guess, aspects that I didn't really expect.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I know we were chatting a little bit about people having different opinions of how to get messages out and what messages should be out there. And, it's one of those things that years ago I remember I got into when I first started. Okay, so when I first started all this, Michael he just turned 20. So 20 years ago, I started this journey. And originally there were only the Yahoo listserv, those little email groups. And, people think that haters are a new thing, or people with differing opinions that want to shove it down your throat is a new thing. All those years ago, I remember getting into an argument with an older blind adult that was furious that I was asking questions about why isn't there audio description in all the movie theaters? And he was furious that why would I insist that because I'm sighted, I was insisting that my blind sons go to the movies. And I thought that was so far from why I was asking that. Like wasn't shoving it. And I finally said, you know what, I have two, and this is what I get to say all the time. I have two that are affected, and they could not be more different. And it actually is exhausting sometimes because you feel like, okay, I'm going to fight for this, but the other one comes along and says, I don't use that mode, I use this mode. And it just so happened that, and my Michael to this day is still a huge moviegoer. I mean, he's actually figured out a system where he gets all the tickets, his buddies pay him on Venmo, but he gets all the points on his movie card. And then he gets them all snacks. That's how often he goes. And Mitch just couldn't care less about most movies. And that was my point to the gentleman. I say, as he was blasting me. I'm like, one wants to go and one doesn't. So if I have a kid that wants to go, of course I want it accessible. My question was simply, why aren't we investing some time and effort in that? Or who is that I can call?
Now it's a huge thing. I mean, we use audio description through Netflix every single day.
And that's where it began. When Michael found Netflix, he was like, whoa. And all the shows are coming out now with that. That's how he got into it. Was Stranger Things was the first binge watch that he would do because it had the description.
That was Kai's first binge watch too. He loved it.
And I tried to get into it and I couldn't. Friends of mine watch it. I try, and Michael keeps saying you got to go like 3 or more episodes, and I can't get over the hump to get into it.
I watch it, but I don't retain it. So every time I see it, it's like it's all new again.
That's hilarious. But at any rate, so yeah, I could feel that when we were talking today. I'm like, and the other thing too is there are times when I'm watching on all my different social media platforms and I'm seeing like I watch Kirk Adams and the stuff he's involved in to chomp at this unemployment rate. And then I got involved with this Ben Fox, who I don't know if you've seen him. I'll have to connect you guys. Who's working with Kirk and a bunch of other successful blind adults to same thing, attack the unemployment rate. This motivational speaker. I'm watching all these people I watch you guys make all this progress and awareness, and I think, oh, maybe I need to move into something else. Maybe it's all taken care of now. You get calls every day where people say, I have no idea. And I'm thinking, but we're everywhere.
Well, I mean, I remember when I first reached out to you, I was just desperate for somebody to talk to. And it was so awesome that you just picked up the phone and spoke with me. I don't think I realized then, being on the other side of that, how much time and energy that really takes. Because now that I'm receiving those phone calls, I realize, wow, I mean, there's still a lot of education that needs to be done. But really what I find is that acceptance is the thing that parents are struggling with the most. And it's like once we can get the parents sort of over the acceptance hurdle, then they're open to all the skills that are out there and all the training that is available. But it seems to me like acceptance really is the key.
So that's a brilliant point. And I think that's where I started years ago when I did that TED Talk, because that was what happened with me. I wasn't open to any of it until I had that moment of acceptance, and then it all flowed from there. But you're right, it is so hard. And then the other, it's like there's 2 buckets to that acceptance. It's the parents and it's everybody working with these kids.
Yes.
Because when they don't get it and they're in and I love so many of the folks I love all of them that choose to be in the profession of educating blind and visually impaired kids, because it is not an easy road and the resources are so limited. But when they're in it for, I don't know, a feel good or feeling like it's a good route to take, as opposed to really, like, you have probably experienced those couple of folks that in their bones believe that these kids really can do what everybody else can do.
Oh yeah, I have fought so hard to get those people on my son's team. And he has an amazing team of people who help him, an O&M instructor, a TVI, and a parapro that helps prepare his materials. But the biggest battle we had with the school system was just obtaining Braille materials. We just for years kept hearing, he's the only student we have that needs Braille, and you know, we're just not up to speed. And it's like, okay, well, he's not going away, so let's get up to speed. And it took a long time, but he's a junior now, and starting last year, he's had all of his materials that he's needed in Braille, which has been a huge win.
Wow, because we had that battle back in kindergarten, first and second grade. And then we did have some changing of the guards, and some other people came in. And, you know, first of it being, the principal we started with was one of the most amazing people on the planet, but he did not have that full-on acceptance that Michael could do whatever it is he was good. He would tell me constantly I was such a great mom. I'm like, that's not getting us very far, dude. It was when the principal that had a special ed background that came in, that's when the whole game changed. And the engine really started going forward. And he actually, that principal sent the entire IEP team to hear Eric Weihenmayer speak when he came into town.
That's so amazing. I mean, just
so cool.
Yeah, the fact that Eric and so many other people are out there paving the way for our kids is just amazing. And yeah, I mean, Kai didn't start losing his sight. Well, we weren't aware that he was losing his sight until he was 10 years old. So we sort of got a late start on everything. He has retinitis pigmentosa, which is a degenerative disease. And we just had no idea. We have no history of it in our family. So while some things were not right from the age of like 8 and 9, we had no idea it was with his vision. And once we figured that out, he just started to thrive. We just didn't know what it was that he needed.
Yeah. And that, you know, it's like 6 of one, half another. Some people say, oh, my boys have never had vision. That must be awful. At least kids that lose it later have a point of reference. You know, but also my boys never realized that they were missing anything, you know, and then Kai he realized when things started to deteriorate. So it is what it is. I mean, you can go both ways on that. Oh. Regardless of where it begins, you know, the end of it, having all the tools and resources is what is the difference in the kids that, you know, whether it's thriving, acceptance. And I'm sitting here thinking about one of my good friends, who her son, me and Michael and her son are going to be on a panel at a big pharmaceutical company soon, talking about, he had the Luxturna, that gene therapy to restore his vision. And my Michael is not interested in having his vision restored right now. I don't know if that'll change later. It may even change tomorrow. I might change by the time we're on the panel. And he says, oh, by the way, I changed my mind. But I said to the folks that were putting it together, I said, when you talk to the boys, ask them questions about their background. And I will bet you $1 million that their background was very different. And it was. I mean, our friend's road was horrible in terms of accessibility, acceptance, opportunity. It was every possible nightmare you could have. And I'm sure that fueled his desire and his hope and his celebration of gene therapy, whereas Michael had all the tools that he needed. And he actually said that vision would slow him down right now because he is so used to life as a blind person to have to rethink all that while away at college. He was like, I couldn't do that right now. But he had every opportunity. But the funny thing is, and this was the reason I wanted this panel together with both of the boys, they're the exact same age and they're good friends.
Wow.
And their lives have been completely different. And this is the hardest thing for sighted folks to get their head around. And it'll be interesting how it's received at this huge company. They are equally happy, pursuing totally different paths. They're both musicians, all of that. They have so many similarities except this vision thing. And they are equally happy and chasing their dreams. Is that amazing?
That's amazing. It is amazing. And I think that is probably one of the big keys to really all the interactions between parents and with our children who are visually impaired is understanding that we all started at different places in different circumstances with different visual issues. And so no two situations are exactly alike. And that's
Yeah.
just, it's so important for us to remember as we communicate with others.
I think it's so important for the teachers to remember too, because each of these blind kids coming in, you know, they're even just my boys. I always say to the teachers, when Mitch comes in, do not expect a mini Michael. I mean, for the love of God, they could not be more opposite. And I'm like, I don't understand. They came from the same person, and their learning styles are different. Everything is different, but they both deserve access to Braille. You know, like one fought Braille, one was all on board for Braille, and I'm like, but they both have to have it, because we can't just go audio early on, because then we'll never understand the whole mechanics of language and all that. And it was just an interesting thing. So, you know, it's just so hard to, and I guess it's every teacher's challenge, you know, especially the ones that have 30 kids in their class, that they're not all the same, which actually brings me to, this is one on the positive side. I always say that our kids with these IEPs, okay, I'm not going to say that blindness is like this wonderful blessing advantage, or different learning styles are a wonderful advantage, but having an IEP is a huge advantage over the other kids in that school, because I have a sighted daughter in those schools, and I have absolutely no idea what goes on with her education. And I don't get to handpick her teachers. I don't get to handpick her goals. I mean, we sit there and write all the goals for Michael and Mitchell and what I want them to focus on, and talk about, I mean, those IEP meetings for 4 hours, we talk about strengths and weaknesses and all that. Carissa, nothing. Crickets.
I can completely relate, because my oldest son has, you know, typical vision and didn't have any issues that required a 504 or IEP. And he graduated, and I, you know, met his teachers in passing.
Yeah.
Like Ty's teachers and his team, we have to have really tight relationships. We need to communicate openly and, you know, be honest about what's happening on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. That's where I see one of the blessings. But back to your comment about, you know, the tools and the parents and acceptance. I guess it really is the one bucket is the families, and then pushing from home, and then the other bucket is where they spend their entire day at the school, and making sure that those folks are on board. And I did start and actually, as this launches, we'll have to stay in touch, and maybe we can start tweaking the parent side. You can help me tweak the parent side of Thriving Blind, because I'm doing this book has now evolved into this program. Who would have thought? Because I'm like, I initially thought, oh, I want to be at all of the schools where the teachers of the visually impaired are being trained before they even get into these school districts, and change their perceptions of blindness and what's possible. That's all I want to do. That'll be the be all end all. And then they'll go into their profession, and they'll have this mindset, and it'll work beautifully. And then I'm thinking, wake up, right? Like that's in Kristin Smedley dream world, you know? Then I'm like, well, wait a minute, how can you can't just be a keynote speaker, you know, at some point during their, I don't know, 4-year program that really is going to make an impact. So how can we do it a little differently? Now it's turned into this hour and a half, 2 hours of actually going through, this is the tough part, going through IEP goals and what they should look like, and what the boys' IEP goals look like, and different resources and all of that. And then I am going to be at the Texas School for the Blind's big conference later this month, and I'm doing the same session, but for parents. That's my hard one, though. That's the one that has taken me forever on the slides presentation and the handout stuff, because it is so hard to find the common ground. Because I was able to come back home after being in Chicago for 6 years and say, where do I want to live based on my boys, when so many people are stuck where they are and cannot change that in terms of the community they're in. And I'm looking at the resources my boys had, and I went out and found for them. Is the average person going to be able to go and get all of those resources?
I know it's a huge struggle for a lot of parents, especially it seems when both parents are working full time. It's an extra big challenge to just attend all of the meetings and to communicate. I mean, there's just so much communication that goes into the success of our children. Yeah, I would be happy to talk with you further about that. I really feel like tools for acceptance, it just sort of all launches from there. Every person who has called me so far with a lot of accessibility issues seems like they're still just really struggling with acceptance and being able to say what it is that their child needs to be successful.
Yeah. How do you, so Kai was 10 when you figured it out, and now he's 17 or 16?
17. Oh, I can't believe it.
I know, right? When do you think that the switch flipped for you?
Oh, I kind of have a weird story about that, but it's really just sort of started forming in my mind. So I hope I don't ramble too much. But when Kai started having his problems, it started with anxiety, and we knew something was wrong. And then it turned into this diagnosis of retinitis pigmentosa and vision loss. But I had recently been diagnosed prior to that with a really serious autoimmune disease, a couple of them actually. And I was so sick at the time. I had just had to close my business. I was a massage therapist and owned a little spa. And I was so sick. And so when he was diagnosed, all I could think of is, what if I'm not here for him? We have got to get the tools for him. And I feel like I sort of skipped over the, like, why is this happening, and got into how can he get what he needs in case I'm not able to be here. But what I've realized is I have gone back over the years and had different moments where we've grieved as a family, or I've grieved, or Kai's grieved. But I think that I sort of like jumped over that because I was just wanting to get him connected so badly to other people. Thankfully, my health got better. Everything's been being managed well. And I'm here for him still, and I hope to be here for him for a long time. But he has the skills that he needs now. And it's funny because once they get the skills they need, there's not as much to grieve, you know?
Yeah.
We're grieving this idea of what we thought their life would be like, or we're grieving sort of our idea of what blindness is. And the reality is, it just is what it is. You know, when they get the skills that they need, their life becomes very normal. Yeah. And so there's just not as much to grieve. So maybe my illness, you know, as hard as it was at the time, it sort of helped us long term.
So that's an interesting point, that you were worried that what if you weren't here? I had read Eric Weimer's Touch the Top of the World when I guess Michael was a year and a half old. And at that time, I was by myself with him almost all the time. His dad worked like all the time and traveled and was never home. And we weren't living near family. We were in Chicago and all our families in Philly. And I read that book, and I don't know if you remember in there when his mom, early on when he was losing his vision, she was like, her thing was, if I'm not here, you need to be able to do things on your own. So she gave him a tour of the pantry, and she had everything accessible for him so he could take care of himself if she wasn't there. And then she ends up passing away in his teens. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I am the only one that knows all of this and can do all this for him. And from the time I read that book, the kids still laugh because I still have a drawer in our kitchen. I mean, they are 20, 16, and 15. And we just up until recently still had the heavy duty plastic cups and plates. There's still the water bottles. Like, it's all, everyone that comes in here can serve themselves.
Oh, our house is that way too. We have the snack drawer, we have the sharps drawer, we have, you know, everything's laid out so Kai can access it.
Yeah.
And you know, he'll be going off to college in a year and a half. And I feel like he will be successful in any environment he's in. He has the tools to be. I mean, it's always hard transitioning. It's hard for my 22-year-old who's about to graduate college.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's a lot of transitioning that happens in life, but I feel like Kai's as prepared as my other son was.
Oh, and you know what? I honestly think that I know that Michael was better prepared than I was.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
He was mad at me when we were in Nashville. He doesn't get mad that often, like hardly ever. And when I was getting ready to leave Nashville when he was going to school there, I was having like a panic attack in the middle of the campus because I'm like, I have to leave tomorrow. And this is a whole different city. And I'm a flight away. Like, how are you? And he was like, are you kidding me? I've been doing this for 18 years. And his thing was, why don't you have faith in me? He was so disappointed in me at that moment that I didn't have faith in the fact that he had been advocating for himself. He had been doing things on his own. I was hovering a lot of stuff. Like, I didn't let him use the oven for a very long time. But he's like, you just don't have the faith. And I can't believe it after all this time. And I'm like, wow, I suck.
No, but you did have the faith. I mean, it's just like moments of weakness, you know? We all have them.
Well, I ended up pulling out my phone as I'm crying in the middle of campus. I'm like, I'm the worst mom ever. You're right. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm going through my whole Facebook thing of all these moms crying because they were dropping their sighted kids off at college. And I'm like, give me a little grace here. Moms are crying everywhere. And he was like, my point is, we came to the fact that he goes, I am 10 times more prepared than all those other kids. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Because we've focused on daily living skills, navigation. I mean, I constantly say to my daughter, how do you not know how to get from our house in a car to your friend's house? You don't know the streets involved. And the boys have always been on maps and Waze and Google, all of that to know the streets. They can get anybody anywhere around here. The rest of us don't pay attention, you know?
That's right. I just did a post the other day. I hope that his girlfriend doesn't watch this, but I did a post today about Kai's preparation for his upcoming Valentine's Day date, because we're going to Savannah, which is the big city near us, Savannah, Georgia. And so Kai met his O&M instructor there and went to the dinner restaurant.
I saw this. I loved it.
Out the bathrooms, and then walked to the dessert restaurant, and then figured out all of that there. And then they walked down to River Street, which is where he wants to end up. And he has it all planned out. And I'm not worried, even though it's a big city and it'll be nighttime, which is when he has no functional vision. All I can be so proud of him. I'm like, that's awesome that you've done all of that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
With Michael's junior promposal ended up going like viral in the blind community and beyond, because, you know, I spent all this time making blindness fall in the background, that it's not up front. And oh my God, he was so insistent on that goofy promposal, which I keep saying it should not be called a promposal. It's like it's a confirmation, because they already know they're being asked, right? So they know it's happening, but that's a whole nother show we can do. But he was doing, and he insisted on the big poster board. I don't know if they're still doing that, but they were doing that at that time. And I'm like, you're a musician. Like, and he was had access to this gorgeous theater at the school, and the girl was one of the theater stars. I'm like, Michael, roll that grand piano out and do a song, like, you know, and he was like, no, that's not what you do. And he did the goofy poster, but the poster he did was, it went something like, I'd be touched if you go to prom with me or something, but he spelled out prom in Braille dots, huge. And they were made out of the chocolate chip cookie. Her favorite cookie was chocolate chip cookies.
Oh,
and
I remember
spelled it in that
post. I remember seeing that.
Isn't that hilarious? And it was just like, people thought it was the greatest thing. And I'm like, it ended up making its way to his preschool vision teacher in Chicago. It came across her Facebook feed. Isn't that funny?
That's amazing.
And that's when I learned, like, all right, fine. I'm like, I still think that if you would have done something about the piano man, you know, that would have been amazing on that stage. He's like, you just don't get it. But he always wanted to be in pop culture is the thing. He loves that.
Yeah, Kai, I can't talk the details of his promposal because it's in the works right now. This will be prom. But I said the same thing. I'm like, you're a musician. Do it up on stage. Do it at open mic night. Sing her a romantic song. But he has a whole nother plan that, you know, I had nothing to do with. So
I don't know why they don't stick with us. We have wonderful ideas.
I know. Hard and hip.
He ended up doing it for the senior prom. It was still the poster thing. And they did it. The senior trip was in Disney World. And his date loved Harry Potter. And somehow, I forget what the poster was, but he had Do you remember the Brady Bunch? Remember that show, The Brady Bunch?
Oh yeah.
Remember the episode where they were at the theme park and they switched Marsha's like poster of, I don't know, the guy she was in love with, and Mike Brady's architecture designs, and they were running through the park with these things with the wrong posters in them for a meeting, whatever. That's what Michael's thing was. It was getting handed off all through Universal to get to this one picture spot so that you could see Harry Potter world in the background, because that was the theme of the promposal.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So Michael stands there with these gorgeous pictures, and it's like everyone I talked to that was involved was exhausted and had it, because they were all trying to hide this poster around Harry Potter. But yeah, he's very into all the stuff that every other teenager is into. That was always Michael's thing, and Mitchell isn't. Mitchell's in Mitchell's stuff, which is funny.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, they're just so different. My boys are very different too. Just completely different.
I don't know how we got off on this wild tangent to promposals, but
all right.
Anyway, we'll bring it back to the whole underlying thing is the acceptance and the tools.
It really is. I feel like it just always comes back to the parent not feeling shame, not feeling guilt, and or feeling it and working through it, and then ultimately accepting the situation for what it is and saying, okay, let's rally the people around us, let's build the team, and let's get our child prepared for the future. And then it's like, once you're on that journey, the other stuff sort of fades to the background.
It's almost like that's a universal issue, because I feel like that's what's happening with a lot of these kids that are falling apart, and people are falling apart because the expectation has been something different of their lives. And I often talk about the best thing about blindness for me that happened to me was taking my dreams were gone for them. And they didn't have to live up to anything that I had intended for them. They got to do their own thing and figure it out. And I just cheered along the way because I couldn't believe they were able to do it. But I catch myself with my sighted daughter all the time. When she walked away from soccer, I thought I would die, because that was my lifelong thing. And she has 10 times the talent I have. And I thought, I'm going to be at the national team watching this kid. And then she was like, this is nuts. The stress of this club and everything I'm up against, and this is crazy. Why would I play this sport? And walked away. And I was like, oh my God. And then she was a sport, field hockey, that I still have no idea what's happening on those fields. I just sit there and scream, you're the best, But I've learned it's her thing.
Yeah.
It's hard though.
It is hard. It's hard to sort of grieve what we thought life was going to be like and accept it for what it is. But so much peace comes with that. I mean, things just get easier.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So, okay. So we have to switch gears, because we got a little heavy there, we have to talk about I Swear apparel, because every time I say it, it just makes me laugh. These shirt slogans that I see.
Well, it all started because Kai's hysterical, and he has this like really wicked sense of humor, but he's also just really articulate and well-spoken. So when he's out in public and somebody approaches him about his sight loss or vision loss, or he has a funny situation, he always responds appropriately, but then later tells us what he really thinks, and everybody's like that, but some people have a quicker wit than others, and Kai's really quick. So one day he was talking about something, and I was like, dang, that should be on a t-shirt. That's hysterical. And then we just started marinating that, and we came up with the idea of I Swear apparel. And it starts off with an awareness statement. I'm wearing one now. This is blindness is a spectrum. So that's what, we want everyone to know. Blindness is a spectrum. But then in Braille underneath it, it's not tactile, it's simulated Braille. And it says, but ignorance is opaque. And this is one that anybody could wear, but I tell you, we got some really racy ones too.
I know, because I saw them on Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, they're not for the faint of heart. And a lot of them are like mature audiences only. I've got them here. This one actually is, today's the last day to order it, because we want to make sure people can get them in time for Valentine's Day.
Okay.
It's My Love is Blind in print. And then in Braille, it says, let me see, my love is blind, but the Braille says no superficial BS. And So Kai and his girlfriend got one of these. He got the pink one and she got the red one.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then the best sellers really are the ones that can be worn by the visually impaired or the blind. You know, anybody that has a sense of humor like Kai. Like this one says, I can't see you. And then in the Braille it says, but I can hear you, dumb A. And so we just have some
That's
fun.
the one where my boys fell apart because I'm like, oh my God, these guys have these shirts. And I go, this is going to be your favorite, because they're always like, when people say to them, what do you dislike about, you know, when people don't know about blindness, and their first thing is always, I can hear. Stop screaming. They don't understand why that's even a thing.
Yeah, the Kai's favorite one, and he wears this all the time because, you know, in high school, well, really just in life, visually impaired and blind people always have people like putting their hands in their face.
I know, what is that about?
How many fingers am I holding up? And it drives Kai insane. So he came up with, I can't count your fingers. That's what it says in text. But then in Braille, it says, but I've got one for you.
That's awesome.
So they're hysterical. We have a bunch. We have some that can be worn by moms, brothers, sisters, dads, and then we have a lot of them. Our best sellers are the ones that are worn by people who are blind and visually impaired. They think they're hysterical.
It is hysterical, especially that fingers one, because it's usually a person that's like a jerk that does that.
Oh, yeah.
Because who would put their fingers in front of somebody's face, you know? Most people, it's the sympathetic, oh, poor you. And then you get those jerks that are like, can you see me? Can you see me?
Yeah, we've had them sold all around the world. It's so fun. But one woman wrote us a message and said that she bought the one about the fingers because every time she goes to her in-laws' house, her father-in-law does that too. And she said, I love it because nobody knows what the Braille says, and I can choose to tell them or not tell them, but I know I'm wearing it.
That's so awesome.
So we love it. They can be worn, you know, really anywhere, and really only the person who's wearing it knows what it says, unless, of course, somebody knows how to read Braille visually. Because they're not tactile. We don't want people reaching out and touching people because we had tactile Braille. So we kept them just print, but all of the proceeds, all of the profits are going towards Kai's college fund, and he wants to go out of state. So we're trying to sell as many as we can. And
oh man, everybody buy a shirt, because going out of state is huge. Good God.
It is.
What does he want to study? Does he know yet?
Well, he's kind of deciding between two things. He's a drummer, and he doesn't want to study performance, but he wants to go to a school with a really good music scene. And he wants to study either sound engineering, music business, or music theory. So he's really been leaning towards music theory lately because he loves math and he loves music theory, and he could become a professor. And he kind of likes the idea of that.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm not 100% sure. I know he'll keep drumming no matter what.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Michael started in music business, and now I can't keep up with how many majors and minors he has.
Oh, wow.
All I know is I was like, please don't go too far over the threshold of how many credits you're allowed to have. I go, because then they tag on more money.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Let's keep it at the end. I said, Michael, there's also a reason why you can only take so many. Like, you can only do so much in a semester. But he's he figures it out. He's done it since high school. He's gotten special permission to take extra classes. And I don't know how the kid finds the hours in the day that he finds, but he loves it. And he loves being at a campus now where, and this is something for Kai and all the kids looking at colleges to consider. Michael looked at the program and the professors and the qualifications, and his first choice was fantastic for all that. But what he forgot to look at, or actually didn't consider as highly, is he's a very, very, very social guy. And he didn't look at the social program, the social scene around, all of that, the work. And now he's found his spot in the majors and minors, all the schoolwork, plus the social scene that he loves. He had to give up a little bit of the music scene for now, which was fine by him, but he fully intends to get back into that, because apparently at where he is at now, he can really cash in. Because who knew that the big campuses, like where he is, the Greek life and the parties that go on, they hire these bands to come in now.
Oh, yeah.
Where was that when I was there? It was like whoever the fraternity's like resident DJ was, you know, and we would hound them for the music we wanted to hear. But now it's full bands and everything. So Michael's like, hey, maybe I'll put a band together up here. So just something to consider that he did. And then Mitchell's looking at, he's more worried about the distance from home and meeting all of his needs of food and types of places to live. He's hilarious in his priorities of looking at a campus. So.
Well, they'll be successful no matter where they go, I'm sure. My cell phone battery is dying. We've been on here so long.
All right, we'll have to wrap it up. I was thinking we should do like a once a month check-in update show, especially these things that we're talking about with like the parents thing and the teacher side of it and the different programs that we have going on. Because there is so much going on, and then we can finally, it'll be like our own public mastermind on figuring out raising blind kids.
That sounds excellent.
All right,
this is my first time in front of the camera, so you're breaking me in.
It's so ridiculous. It's your first time because you're like a veteran sitting there with your great lighting. You've got your shirt on. You're fun to talk to. It's perfect. Well, you're patient with me.
I do it for Kai. I'm always setting Kai up because he loves to talk. He loves to be in front of the camera. And I was like, I don't know about me.
No, it's perfect. All right, I'm calling it. We're doing at least a once a month show.
Sounds fun.
We'll come up with a cool name for it. All right, and then when I put this out, we'll put all the links to I Swear, to Navigating Blindness, to Kai's Comforts, and then we'll do updates along the way.
Well, and let me just say something quick about Kai's Comforts. If I die, goodbye in advance. But I started a charity where he collects comfort items from people in our area, and then he distributes them to different schools for the blind. So this will be our fourth year. He collected 150 different items, like really fluffy, highly textured blankets. And he goes into the schools, and this year he's actually speaking in front of about 100 people, and he's going to give out the items and talk about stepping out of your comfort zone. So I'm really excited to hear what he has to say. And yeah, and thank you to you, because Kristin sent along some of her Thriving Blind books, and I know the school's really excited to get their hands on those.
Awesome. Well, make sure you film him, or at least part of his speech. He's so fun to talk to. I can imagine he's going to resonate with all the people that hear him. Because he's just cool.
I mean, he's excited to do it. He just doesn't get nervous. You know, I guess it's from being a musician. They're just used to being in front of an audience.
I think there's something in him, too, that is just, he's very comfortable, and he makes you comfortable when you talk to him.
Oh,
cool.
Thank you.
It's a cool vibe that he has.
Thank you.
Let's wrap it up before your battery totally dies, and then we'll put all the links to it in the post. But thanks so much for joining me, and everybody tune in again next time, because we're going to continue our show.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Chris.